Hi. So, you know in horror flicks when the girl's about to go down into the basement, but you know the killer is down in the basement and you're screaming at the screen, "Don't go down there, you idiot!" Grab your popcorn, friends, and get ready to yell at the screen. Because if making an 18th century Italian gown were a slasher film, I would definitely be the chick going down in the basement, and the Angelica gown would absolutely be the escaped killer. Or is it the other way around? Good thing this is a wearable mock-up and not my expensive silk ball gown. There are a couple of modifications I would like to make to my pattern before we do anything. Firstly, I cut out 3 different sizes. I cut out my normal measurement size for the front, but I cut a size down for the back pieces because I tend to be larger in the front than I am in the back. For the sleeve, and this is something I really like about this pattern, they include all of the sleeve sizes in each version of the pattern because they want you to pick your sleeve measurement based on your bicep and not on your actual waist, bust, hip measurements. My arms tend to be a lot thicker than most patterns, so I actually cut a size up from my normal measurements for the sleeves. I usually need to accommodate a little bit for the bust, so I've decided I'm going to slash and spread the front and open it out about 5/8 of an inch just to be on the safe side, and then I'll add a little bit of paper into there to give myself a little extra. In addition, because I want this to be super adjustable, of course I do, I'm going to extend the front of the gown bodice by another full inch so that I have a little extra to fold over and adjust as needed. Putting an inch on each side gives me a full 2 inches extra for expansion. Another thing I like about this pattern is that it gives the waist to underarm measurement of 8 inches. I measure my stays and my waist to underarm measurement is about 6 3/4-ish. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a full 7 inches. So I'll just slash at the appropriate line for all of the bodice pieces and move them up a full inch. Now I have 5 yards of fabric. I'm supposed to have 5 7/8 of a yard because I didn't look at the fabric width before I bought it. I didn't even think. It was dumb of me. But I've already checked it and I think we're going to be fine. It's going to be a little tight, which is why, even though this is a full wearable mock-up, I'm going to cut a toile out of bed sheets first and check my size. I don't have any room to make mistakes, so we'll make the mistakes on the bed sheet instead of the fabric. Well, I haven't made any other changes. If all of my patterns fit this well after the first fitting, my life would be so much easier. In fact, if this was what the final gown looked like, I'd be totally happy with it. There are a couple of tweaks I'm gonna have to make. We are getting a little bit of wrinkling in the front, so I'll do a little spin for you. The sleeve could be maybe a little bit wider. The sleeve will be the last thing we fit and the last thing we do. Honestly, I think we're ready to get this baby cut out. How nice is that? I am a 1/2 of an inch short. That is so annoying. But no biggie. We'll just make it a 1/4 inch shorter on each side and we'll be fine. This is infuriating, y'all. Look at that. It's like an inch difference. I was really thrown off by the process of cutting out the skirt, so I'm going to quickly show you what it actually looks like. So when you put everything together, there's a skirt top and a skirt bottom. If you're cutting 60-inch fabric, don't worry about this. This doesn't concern you. Skip to the next chapter. If you're cutting 54 or 45 or something in between, this is 2 pieces. If you look, there are seam indications for each skirt pattern. In the long run, to make my brain wrap around it, I ended up cutting on that seam line so that I have the main piece that's 45 inches wide, and also this little piece, which is a little bit more than half the width of my fabric, by the way. And this is going to be the additional piece that gets seamed onto either side. With that little snafu out of the way, the first thing I did was turn in the front edges of the skirt and hem. I know that I'm going to get a lot of use out of this gown, so I'm serging all the edges. First thing we're doing is folding back the front lining to sew on the eyelets. Would it have been smarter for me to use some of my pre-made eyelet strips first until I had everything fit properly? Yes. Was I being overconfident and thinking I had this covered? Yes. This is going to cause problems for me down the line. Remember that this video is the mock-up and about my mistakes and things you shouldn't do when making an Angelica gown. This isn't going to be a full tutorial. That will happen when I make the real thing. So if you're interested in seeing that video, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't and hit the like button. And in the meantime, enjoy this train wreck. There's a piece of boning on each front edge of the bodice. Once the lining is properly boned, we'll use this handy dandy eyelet guide to mark the front lacing. All right, time to sew some eyelets. Have you spotted my dumb error yet? Those eyelets are supposed to be on the outside so you can remove your boning to wash the garment. By machine sewing, I don't have access to them. Derp. The 12 fits so easy, I thought this was going to be a simple project and I just keep screwing up. What's wrong with me? After struggling for a little bit, I just decided the easiest and most simple way to fix my problem with the boning was just to hand stitch the center back seam. I did not film it because it was 11 o'clock at night and I was tired and it was the first time I've ever done the stitch. I will show you in detail how to do that stitch in my next video when I do the full ball gown, because that one is going to be completely hand stitched. For now, just know it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I think that the stitch is going to be sufficient to hold together. Now to assemble the lining. Notice that the only fashion fabric that gets attached at this stage is the back. We're going to fit the lining again before dealing with the front bodice. Really, my biggest complaint about this is that it pretty much closes all the way closed in the center. The only issue I'm having is right here. All of the other wrinkling you see is pretty much, you know, the ridge of my petticoat here and the laces of my stays. This one, this is a problem. But it's only this side. This side looks pretty good. Also, I'm crooked apparently. I can fix that later. So I'm gonna review the footage before I make a final decision because it's always easier to see issues on camera, but unless I see any other major issues, I think we're good to put this thing together. Ow. Well, my friends, I adjusted and could not figure out why I was crooked. So I took it all off, laid it out and started measuring, and I figured out the problem. Can you see it? I'm not gonna tell you what it is. Leave me a comment below and give me your best guess as to why my whole bodice was crooked. Everybody who gets it right will get a gold star. Okay, with all the pieces in the correct position, I tried it on again. Looking pretty good, y'all. Now to assemble the bodice. I think I'm being smart here and I'm going to try and machine sew it. Remember, the big curve goes at the top. Then I pinned everything down to my lining. So while I'm pinning this bodice in vain, let's talk about what I'm actually doing here. I'm participating in a YouTube collaboration called the Angelica-thon. A bunch of different creators are making their own version of the Angelica gown, the pattern by Scroop Patterns and Virgil's Fine Goods. I've got a whole playlist linked in the description below. And I'll be linking to each separate channel below as each gown gets finished. And the best part is, you can participate too. We're running this as a sew-along over on Instagram, and whether you want to join in the fun or just watch everyone's progress, you can follow the hashtag Angelicathon to see all of the fun photos. Welp, that didn't work. The front is warping. I was trying so hard to come up with an easy machine sewn way of making this gown for anyone who might not be comfortable hand sewing an entire 18th century gown yet, but everything I've done so far has been wrong. It has been a complete disaster. I just have to admit that I can't INTJ my way out of this, and I need to suck it up and just look at the darn directions. Ugh! I'm usually so much more efficient, but in this particular case, like, it's just not working. So let's look at the directions. So last night I sucked it up and I hand stitched the side piece down. Now, I'm not sure that you can see this because my thread matches really well and my stitching is fairly small, but I did a prick stitch on the back seam. Now, I was gonna do this anyway. It's actually quite fun and it doesn't take long. I think this seam might have taken me 10 minutes, like it wasn't that bad. And then the directions say to whip stitch this side down, which I did do, and again, I'm not sure that you can see it. It is fairly small and hidden. The other thing I did was I decided to take in the front a little bit. So I took it in right at the side here by hand and I just tacked it up. I just made a tuck. I just went bloop and then I whipped it down. So from here, I also went ahead and pressed up the seam allowance. So now we're going to follow the instructions which say to pin and baste this in place. So that's what we're gonna do. I whipped the tops and bottoms on one side, but not the other before trying on, and I will say I definitely think it's worth the time to do it before you fit. The loose side was really a pain when I tried to pin it. Baste everything down. I mean everything. Still basting. Did not enjoy, especially when I put it on and it was wrinkling like crazy. I mean, what is this nonsense? But at least the back looks good. After a few minutes of stewing, I realized that the waist was now too long. Why it did that, I have no idea, but a tuck of the lining seems to have done the trick. This side, I left the tuck in the side and then left the tuck up on the waist. This side, I let out the tuck and there is no tuck on the waist. So this is essentially the original size and this is the smaller this way, smaller this way. I've pinned these both. I've been wearing this for a while, casually glancing at it, trying to make a decision. This side I think looks better, apart from this down here, which is buckling, but that's because of the curve. I'm gonna have to recut the curve if I end up taking it up, and I think I'm going to. We're gonna go ahead and sew up the tucks. I think what I may do real quick is cut one of my original mock-up with the new curve and test it before I cut into my good fabric. I transferred the tuck markings from one side to the other and off camera hand sewed it down. That is way better. And here's the bedsheet with the adjusted curve. Very nice. So I pinned my bodice to the pattern, matching the underarm curve at the top. Then I traced the new bottom curve. I used tracing paper to mark out the new curve, and then I cut off the excess. All right, there's a slight wrinkle here, but it's good enough. I can live with this. So I'm gonna take this off and do the same to the other side. Get it sewn down, finally. With the bodice finally wrangled, we could turn our attention to attaching the skirt. Measure from the center back seam out to the skirt ending point on the front bodice. This is how wide each pleated side should be. Pin everything down to your pointed width. Then start with a 4-inch inverted box pleat in the back. The pleats are all going to radiate towards this back pleat. Like I mentioned in my petticoat video, pleats during the late 18th century were very small. I didn't have the patience to do it on my petticoat, but for the gown I'm taking the time to keep my pleats between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch wide. Make them deeper in the back and shallower in the front. I learned that you really need to make them deep in the back in order to gather up all that material in such a tiny space. Also make sure to smooth down and pin all the way down to the fold line as indicated on the pattern. Don't skip it. I do want to say that all of the struggle I'm having here today is self-inflicted and not the fault of the pattern itself. The instructions are extremely thorough and there are a lot of illustrations, which I love. Apart from the bust and waist measurements I had to make to accommodate for my own particular body quirks, this pattern has come together quite nicely with very few other fitting issues. I highly recommend it. Ooh, pretty. Give them a really good press and use whatever you have on hand to add weight to the pleats until they're cool. I did cheat and use the machine to base down all the pleats.
Woo! That took forever. Good thing I didn't hand baste all those.
I didn't want to, but we're going to hand stitch the skirt to the bodice. Place the bodice on top of the skirts with both sides facing and pin them down. I'm doing this wrong again. Don't just follow the curve of the bodice with the edges of your skirt. There's a fold line there for a reason. Line it up right. Ta-da! The end is almost near, folks, but the bad news is the worst is yet to come. I'm pretty happy with the fit of the skirt. The only issue I'm having right now is, boom, this weird buckling thing that's happening right around the rump. However, I'm pretty sure that has to do with the basting that's holding the pleats together. Once I release that, the skirt should fall pretty nicely. If it doesn't, I can adjust it as I need to. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this stitched on, and then we can tackle the worst part, the sleeves. One other quick fitting note, I did end up having to take both of my straps up. I got a little cocky when I sewed the straps on before. I didn't try it on and definitely was getting some gaping. So all I had to do was pull it up. I kind of did it in a little bit of a triangle so that the arm side doesn't get any smaller than it is. Seems to work, so I'm gonna stitch that down, stitch the skirt down, and then we should be able to do the hard part. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. Even though I've made this project way harder on myself than I should have, it's actually been a lot of fun to do. I really enjoy making these videos, and it is such an honor to know that there are other folks out there who enjoy watching them. Since this has been more of a how not to instead of a how to. If you have any specific questions about how this gown is constructed, please, please, please drop down into the comments and let me know. I'm gonna try and answer anything that you have in the final video when I make the ball gown. I'm gonna be taking my time making that. It's gonna be completely hand stitched, so you have plenty of time to ask your questions if you have any. And a huge thank you to everyone who's contributed so far on my Ko-fi account. Thank you so much. If you couldn't tell by the quality of this shot, I have finally, after 2 years, bought a real video camera. It's so awesome. There's a viewfinder, and I'm still learning, like, the viewfinder is here and the camera is here, so if you see me looking over here, that's why. And now I'm perfectly in frame. Out of frame, in frame. Out of frame, in frame. All right, that's enough silliness. Let's get this sewn. And now the part we've all been dreading, the Sleevils. On your marks, get set, go. So the underarm portion of the sleeves are basted in place. Then what you do is smooth from the pit upward over the shoulder and pin. This is so much easier if you have a friend to help. It's quite difficult to do on yourself, and even more difficult if you're trying to do it on camera with your mirror placed awkwardly to the side. Once you hit the top of your shoulder, start pleating the excess backward in 2 to 3 pleats. Once everything is pinned off your body, you'll want to smooth it and even out all your pinning so it's not helter-skelter. I found that one side was a lot easier to do on myself than the other. Make sure you're not pinning into your chemise or you'll have a hard time getting it off. And you can see by my face, I am not having fun. And as I began to lose the light, we reached the end of the tunnel, folks. With everything neatly pinned and full range of motion in my arms, I could safely sit down and sew on the sleeves. Whew! We made it! To sum up, I'm really glad I decided to make a full wearable mock-up of this out of something I actually wanted to wear. I made so many stupid mistakes and learned some really valuable lessons from this that I wouldn't have otherwise if I had just done a bedsheet mock-up. Mainly, the pattern instructions are there for a reason. Use them. I hope this video was somehow useful for you, even if it's just to see that despite screwing everything up, you can still persevere and come out with something gorgeous that you're proud to wear. This was quite a different project for me. It's much pinker, girlier, and froofier than my usual makes, but I still absolutely love it. And I'm so excited that now I have a nice, straight, historical 18th century gown to wear to events. Between this, the Queen of Hearts final ball gown, my Bowie gown, and my chemise à la cure, my 18th century capsule wardrobe is almost complete. I do plan to make an Amalia jacket, and at some point I'm going to tackle a Française, but for the most part, this is going to get me through a lot of different events. On a personal note, August is very busy for me. I've got a huge, awesome writer's workshop happening at the beginning of the month, and toward the end, I'm taking my first real vacation since the summer of 2019. My parents are putting me to a straight no working rule while we're on vacation because, well, I haven't had a real day off since March of 2020. So the next few videos I put out are going to be smaller makes or talking head videos, so I have a chance to enjoy life, at least for a little bit. I'll be working on my villainous Victorian corset, as well as picking away at this final ball gown that goes with this project in the meantime, so I hope that you'll stick with me. And if you're ready for more sweet Angelica gown videos, you can check out this playlist, which has all of the Angelica-thon videos in one handy spot. Thank you so much for watching, folks. I love y'all, and I'll catch you in my next video.